Hi, everybody, and welcome to Trent University in Peterborough, Ontario, as we continue our Learning 2030 series. That's TVO's year-long special look at how technology is transforming how we learn, what we learn, and where we learn it. And in the spirit of think globally but act locally, we have come to Peterborough to try to understand how the globalizing reach of digital technology affects individual teachers working in their particular classrooms. And we are here in this it's called the Great Hall, and it is a great hall, a beautiful, beautiful room here at Trent University. We've been here all weekend long experiencing all that this university and the city of Peterborough have to offer. On the heels of our Idle No More coverage, we heard from Indigenous youth about how they see the future of Aboriginal education on and off the reserve. We saw future graduates at work as TVO Kids and the Mozilla Foundation hosted lots of children creating websites, designing apps and games at our Hive event. And we're going to keep things rolling tonight. Even if you weren't able to join us here in Peterborough, you can participate in our program. We're live streaming this on our homepage. That's theagenda.tvo.org. Our online editor, Daniel Kitts, and our online producer, Naveen Vaswani, are both hosting a live chat on that website, theagenda.tvo.org. You can send us your thoughts as well via Twitter and use the hashtag Learning2030. We have you. We have our audience here in the Great Hall. We have a panel of guests standing by, waiting to participate in our discussion. But off the top, we're going to talk to this man right here. This is one of the biggest names in education. He's Michael Fullan, Professor Emeritus at OISE, the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, former Special Educational Advisor to both Premier Dalton McGuinty and former Prime Minister of the UK, Tony Blair. He's got a new book out called Stratosphere, Integrating Technology, Pedagogy, and Change Knowledge. Earlier today, we heard you share some big ideas on our program, Big Ideas, and that will, if people want to know more about that, they can go to the Big Ideas video page and see that speech. And in the meantime, welcome to Trent.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Let's start with this, Michael Fullan. We know that we have seen independent studies that suggest that Ontario has one of, if not the best, school system in the English-speaking world. And I wonder, if that's the case, why are you talking about radical changes that you think we need?
Well, two reasons. One is, as good as it is, it's not that great, actually, when you look closely at it. 82% high school graduation, there's a big gap there. Subgroups, Aboriginal students doing poorly. Literacy, 70% at the high measure. Take the EQAO, our assessment scores. The highest level of performance is, where really the critical skills are, is level 4. The percentage of students achieving level 4 all through this last decade is stuck at 13%. So if you put your critical hat on, it's not all that great. Similarly, inside the system, on the same point, students are not all engaged. There's a degree of boredom in there that increases as you go up the grade levels. So that's one reason. The other reason is if you stand still, you go backwards. It's hard to do, but when you look at the world, these other countries that we're interacting with in Finland and Singapore, England these days, trying to get back on the road to development. There's tremendous global development going on in education, and if we don't act, we'll be left behind.
I suspect everybody in this room remembers the 3 R's, which we had to learn when we were growing up, and you have now changed that from 3 R's to 6 C's that you think we need to know, and let's just bring them up and then I'll ask you about them. The 6 C's are character education, citizenship, communications, critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration, and creativity and imagination. I got to tell you, I think the 3 R's were easier to remember than the 6 C's, but I appreciate why you think these are important. Yeah. Which one of the 6 do you think represents the most significant break with the past?
Well, I want to say first that in all of the educational examples we see in the province that are working on these, they're working on 2 or 3 of them simultaneously. So it seems like 6, but it's really probably 3, because when you do critical thinking, you're doing collaboration with students and you're communicating. So there's quite a bit of synergy around them. I think of the ones that are the one that's probably, it's hard to pick a one that's very important, but I'll say creativity and imagination. Sir Ken Robinson's lament about the systems focusing too much on literacy and not enough on the imagination and thinking. So that's probably the one that's most neglected, although I might put a charge in for character education and citizenship.
We should mention, I mean, you're on the Big Ideas video page, but if anybody hasn't seen Sir Ken, go to YouTube and look at his stuff. He's a great speaker too, isn't he?
Yes, we've had him up here and he's fabulous.
Okay, what are the qualities that we should look for in teachers who will be, actually, let me take a step back. We've called this series Learning 2030 because when we started it last year, if a child was born last year, by the time they turn 18 and are ready to go off to post-secondary, they're going to be, it's the year 2030. So we wanted to imagine what the education system was going to look like in the year 2030. And I want to know what the qualities that we should look for in teachers who will be teaching a child born today who will be graduating in 2030.
We did another recent book with my colleague Andy Hargraves called The Professional Capital of Teachers. And it says there are three things: the human capital, which is their talent as individuals; social capital, their ability to work with other teachers; and decisional capital, which is the one that's very important. What decisions are they making day after day that's best for this student who's different than that student? So I think the qualities are a teacher who clearly, to begin with, has a commitment to the betterment of students, to raise the bar, close the gap, the moral imperative. But being committed is not enough. You have to be good as well. You have to be skilled. You have to be effective. So the second set then has to do with the efficacy of teachers, which is their digital prowess, their ability to be partners with students, maximizing the involvement of students in the engagement, their capacity to enable students to work with each other. That's just among students. And then you have another set, commitment to continuous learning. The profession is you have to learn all through your career, any profession these days. The commitment and capacity to work in teams, very big. Students, we want to do that. Teachers have to do it. So collaboration is another one. And then paying attention to what impact am I having, but also what impact are we having. We want the teacher in the classroom to feel a responsibility for how well the school is doing, the whole school. We want that school to be have a commitment to how well is the district doing at 20 schools or 200 if you're in York Region. So there's a really big ask of teachers for this century that is much bigger, much more exciting, and much more demanding.
Let me pluck one more thing off that list that you just talked about, and then we're going to get some other people involved in the discussion as well, and that is technology. You are looking for essentially a technological revolution, not just in our individual schools, but across the whole education system. And I wonder how important you think it is for the teachers themselves to be tech savvy.
Well, it's certainly everybody has to be tech savvy for the future. And the good thing is we're gaining on it because the young people coming up into being the teaching profession are more tech savvy just year by year. So it's critical, but they also have to be critical consumers of technology. Not all technology is good. You can get overboard on the sheer amount of information. You have to be able to position technology in relation to the 6 C's we talked about and maximize that impact. But what you don't have to be is you don't have to be the most technological savvy in the room. It could be students that are that. So you don't need the technical proficiency all the time. You can get that.
Don't worry if the kids know more than you do about this stuff.
Absolutely, and it's a win-win because the teachers are doing some of your work. The students are. The students feel better because they're part of action. And so reduce your need to be in control of the technological expertise and increase your capacity to bring out learning in students.
Okay, I want to share some numbers right now with the people who are watching us both at home and here in the Great Hall. Here's what we're talking about. How many teachers do you think there are in the province of Ontario? 115,000 primary and secondary teachers in the province who teach at 5,000 primary and secondary schools. If we go to the budget year 2009-10, their combined salaries represented almost half the provincial education budget. Now, what do they think about technology? Well, York University did a study on this, and we got the results off something called MindShareLearning.com. 42% said they didn't have sufficient internet access. 53% of teachers said they didn't receive an information and communications technology plan. And 41% worked in schools without BYOD policy. What's BYOD policy?
Bring your own device.
Bring your own device, okay. Yep. When I was growing up, it was BYO. No, never mind. That's a different
That was
kind
after
of thing.
school, hopefully.
That was different. One more thing. Let's share one more set of numbers here. This is technology in American classrooms among medium and secondary school teachers in the U.S. 73% of their students use their mobile phones in the classroom. 45% of their students use e-readers. 43% use tablet computers in the classroom. 41% report a major impact by requiring more work to be an effective teacher. Okay, we chew on all of those numbers, and we're going to discuss them more as the course of the hour goes along. Before we meet our other guests, though, let's spend just a minute here or so with a man who has spent a lot of money trying to improve the education system, certainly south of the border, and what makes for a good teacher. Here's Bill Gates. Roll tape, please.
Well, it turns out that the way you engage the class is a critical difference. So an average person, average teacher comes in, and this is only through research, we know this. They pretty much know what they're going to present during that class. And looking at the students and seeing if they're sort of fidgeting, moving their leg, there's a lack of energy in the room, going in, asking them questions, getting them engaged, seeing if they can relate to the topic. The best teacher is very interactive. It's more performance-oriented. It's amazing that the difference between the very best teachers and the ones that are the worst is incredible. Even from the best to the average is a dramatic difference, and yet we don't really look into why that good teacher is so good and try and capture it so that we can help the average teacher move up to, say, the top quartile. If we did that, we'd have the best education system in the world. But our teachers get the least feedback. Over 95% are never told what they're doing well, what they're not doing well. And it just doesn't drive excellence to not know what you need to work on.
Bill Gates. Let's just take a few seconds here and reset our broadcast. We are in the Great Hall at Trent University here in Peterborough, Ontario, for the latest installment in our Learning 2030 series. We are imagining an education system for a child born last year, this year. What will that education system look like by the time he's ready or she's ready to go to post-secondary education in the year 2030? We are live streaming this discussion as we speak, so we hope you're dialing us up on the agenda.tvo.org to enhance your participation in the broadcast, or if you want to tweet your thoughts on what you're hearing, hashtag Learning2030 is the hashtag that we would like you to use. Now, joining our discussion, Kathy Bruce, who's the Associate Professor at Trent University's School of Education and Professional Learning. Ron Canuel is the President and CEO of the Canadian Education Association. And Camille Rutherford is Associate Professor in the Department of Teacher Education at Brock University in St. Catharines, Ontario. And we thank you three for joining Michael Fullen, who has also joined us up on stage for the discussion. Camille, to you first. We heard in that Bill Gates clip a lot of words, but actually not the word technology, which is a little unusual for the founder of Microsoft, but there you have it. You teach teachers how to teach. And I'm wondering how important you think, same question I asked Michael Fullen, how important is it that they be tech savvy?
I have to be honest, I have a bit of an issue with the term tech savvy.
What would you prefer?
I think tech-enabled teachers. Tech savvy means you know how to use your phone, you know how to use your tablet, but do you know how to use it within the classroom to support student learning? Those are two very different things. I know how to read. Does that mean I know how to teach people how to read? So I think it's very important to understand that difference. Okay. And I think that it's not just about the technology. When we look at the competencies or the 6 C's that Dr. Fullen was talking about, some of those are related to technology, but very often we don't need technology to support collaboration, critical thinking, creativity. And so very often people get too bogged down in that, we need the technology to drive these competencies, when really it's technology enables us to use those in more engaging ways. And I think that's what we really need to think about. So for our new teachers, our teacher candidates that I work with on a daily basis, it's about how do I use these technologies, combine that with my pedagogical knowledge, my content knowledge, my knowledge about my students, and create engaging learning experiences for our students.
Kathy, speaking of those younger teachers, my hunch is, the assumption is, they're more tech-enabling, is that the word? Yeah, that's the one we're working with? They're better at this stuff than, say, people who've been in the system for 25 years. Is that true?
I would say that the students that I'm working with, the teacher candidates I'm working with, are very eager to be engaging with technology to maximize student learning. And the uptake, though, in schools is remarkable as well. And so I'm working in collaboration with teachers across Ontario who are trying to figure out how to maximize the use of technology so that it is actually enhancing the learning. And it's just incredible when teachers are given the opportunity to learn together. I think one of the issues is access to those professional learning opportunities, whether they're pre-service or in-service.
Gotcha. Canadian Education Association, you did some studying on this issue, and you found that student engagement levels peter out the older that students get, which is certainly not what we want. Somebody in grade 5, their intellectual engagement level might be at 82%. By the time it gets to grade 11, it drops off to 41%. This suggests that nearly 6 in 10 students, Ron, especially in the higher grades, are just going through the motions. And I'm wondering, what kinds of qualities do you think teachers need to have in order to counteract this very troubling trend?
It's a great question. It's a research right now of 67,000 students across Canada, so it's an extremely large, let's just say, sample size. What teachers can do to address this issue is that I think they fundamentally have to look at within the structures that they work within. The structure as it stands now is a structure that does value very much compliance and conformity. It doesn't allow for risk-taking. It doesn't allow for creativity. It doesn't allow for these notions that need to be developed, exactly as what Camilla and Kathy were saying, to really develop themselves within a classroom. So there is a major league constraint that's being imposed, and even more so now because of our increased tendency to move towards accountability and greater accountability and performance measurements, and this is putting a lot of extreme pressures on the teachers that, quite frankly, are the wrong pressures to put on them.
Michael Fullen, let me follow up with you, because in your Big Ideas lecture, you pointed out more than 90% of children, when they enter the school system in kindergarten, are highly engaged, excited about education. By the time you get to grade, what was it, 9? It's at 37%.
Yeah, very similar figures.
How do we arrest that trend? That's just appalling.
Well, some of the people on the panel are working on that as well, which is, and I said in the lecture, we have to change the nature of the educational experience to have students as greater partners in the learning and to use the 24-hour clock instead of just the 6 hours during the day, but to be purposeful, to pursue the critical thinking. And on the question of accountability, if I lived in the United States, I would be much more worried about that. I mean, we don't have an oppressive accountability system now, I think, in Ontario, but it could happen, so I think we should be prepared for it. But there is room right now to develop this engagement. And if you take my first criterion, which was irresistibly engaging for students, if it doesn't meet that, you don't even get a start.
Well, Bill Gates talked about performative skills, I think was the way he put it. If you're a teacher, you better know a little something about showbiz. Is that fair to say? You know what I mean, Camille?
Yes. I think this is, we are expecting something from our students that we don't expect from ourselves. When we talk about these 21st century skills, collaboration and creativity and things, we're expecting them to go down a path that we haven't been down ourselves. And that's one of the biggest problems that I see that we have right now. So how do we expect 21st century pedagogy to be in the classroom when our teacher candidates, our veteran teachers, our mid-career teachers haven't been down that path? They're not used to using those technologies or developing those skills within themselves, and now they have to develop those within someone else. So I think that's very challenging. And all of these things that we expect from our students, we need to expect those from our teachers and our school leaders as well.
Ron, can I ask you a real smart aleck question here?
Sure.
All right, let's go. What percentage of the teachers in the classroom today have the performance skills or don't, are technology enabling or aren't? What's the number?
Well, I would tell you in my former district, at the Eastern Township School Board in the province of Quebec, it's at 98%, since we've had a one-to-one deployment since 2003, and the only district in Canada. In the rest of Canada, I would suggest it's under 25% with respect to the technological skills to be able to pull it off, what we're expecting them to do. And we did this in a research just recently called Teaching the Way You Aspire to Teach, where we surveyed teachers and met with teachers across Canada. And it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating to hear these teachers articulate the fact that they wanted to use the technology, but we're being prevented to from the filters, the policies, the constraints that really just aren't enabling this. We have to inject a lot of trust into this system now, because I think the more we trust our educators, the better things will become. But we've got to, that leap of faith has to happen.
What do we say, Kathy, to trustees or principals or whomever who say, if you let kids have these devices in the classroom, they're just going to be texting each other the whole time, and it'll be a waste of time to have it in there?
There are always attitudes of resistance to technology, and no matter where you are. And I think one of the things we really want to pay attention to is the how factor versus the wow factor. So when we get new technology in the room and it's a novelty, we think, wow, this will really engage kids, it will make it fun for them. And I'm cautious about that because I think it has a short lifespan. I think we really need to be thinking about how we use that technology to engage learners, how we're using the technology to help learners become producers of knowledge as opposed to consumers of knowledge. And this is a big issue around new technologies where I might just want to be entertained. And we really need to think about how we support teachers in developing the skills to be those change agents that we're hoping they will be, and taking advantage of the technologies to do so.
I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Ron, which is what percentage of teachers in the system today do you think can perform versus can't, are technology enabling versus aren't?
I'm happy to take his figure of 25% on the average, but I do want to say again that we talk about policy drivers, and we say technology should not be a policy driver. Pedagogy should be the driver.
What's the difference?
The difference is that you are looking for, on purpose, for the technological expertise and devices and applications that will accelerate the learning of students for particular purposes, and that the teacher is orchestrating that, is designing that. So it's not at the mercy of technology. But I would say, though, that we need to take the risk on letting technology permeate, which will have the downside and the upside. We have to take that risk and get better at then sorting it out. If you try to hold back and sort it out in advance, it's happening anyways. It'll just get worse. So I'm for risk taking. Go open for it, take it in there, but know what you're doing and try to sort it out. And I'm going to say students will gravitate toward exciting learning if you do it well.
Ron, a follow?
Just to briefly say that it shouldn't be called technology and learning, technology in learning. And we don't separate technology. This has been a big problem over the last few decades, is that technology has always been isolated. There are technology conferences. I don't see textbook conferences, okay? I don't see pencil conferences, okay? But I see technology conferences.
It's all got to be together.
You got to bring it together.
Okay. While you four are experts, we actually have an honest-to-goodness high school student in this room right now that we're going to talk to see if all of your expertise is actually being manifested in his classroom. So let me come on over here and talk to Courage Hushman, who is a grade 12 student at Earl Haig High School. With the Toronto District School Board, you're also what's called a student trustee. So you're on the school board.
Right, yeah.
You don't vote, but you're on the board.
I don't. We don't have a binding vote, though our vote certainly affects what the other trustees say and do.
Really?
Well, you would hope so, right?
Well, okay, those are two different things, but okay. I want to get a sense. You're in the last year of high school, right?
Right.
So I want to get a sense over your number of years in the public school. Have you been in the public school system all the way through?
Yes.
How well do you feel that this public school system has prepared you for whatever's going to come next?
I think if the future, were to be, if the future consisted of, lifelong membership in the National Regurgitation Academy, then I would be greatly prepared. Unfortunately, I think it's quite frankly the opposite. We live in a world where we have to be sparked by curiosity. It's uncertainty that drives us. It's uncertainty that makes us who we are and what we do. And quite frankly, I do not think that currently, though we have a great education system in Ontario, it's the wrong system.
What does that mean?
Well, I think technology integration has to be a lot more prevalent. And I don't use that term loosely because, everyone thinks, let's integrate technology. One teacher puts up a website and, you think the job's done. But that's not the case, right? It's utilizing Facebook, let's say. Students are on Facebook, 25 hours out of the 24 hours in a day, and yet we haven't utilized that in terms of creating a group, a classroom group, where you can, use that.
But you know why, right? You know the fear. The fear is that I guess all your teachers and principals and so on think that you're just messing around on Facebook rather than using these digital tools to enhance your education. What's the reality?
The reality is we cannot bring about change through being irrelevant. If you want to bring about change, it's never done so through being irrelevant. All the change, if you want to change the system, you have to be relevant in doing so. And using social media, when students are on it, you have to utilize this fantastic tool.
What percentage of your teachers do you think have embraced this kind of digital landscape that you'd like to see in class?
Well, I think it's less about embracing technology. It's more so, you have two groups of teachers. One who vehemently dislike technology, and those who say, it's okay.
Oh, so nobody embraces it.
I'd say a very rare group of teachers embrace it, and let alone embracing isn't even the right word because we haven't reached that level yet. Embracing means proper integration. That hasn't happened.
Can you bring smartphones or iPads into your classes?
You can, but you can't use it.
Come again?
Well, you can't use it. And to some extent, I understand why. But you can't really use it while the teacher is speaking. Perhaps with this kind of a method, teacher standing on top, in front of a classroom and students there, maybe you shouldn't. But you have to change it so that you can.
When did you last get a report card?
I think it was a couple weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
What was the number at the very bottom?
It was a 94%. Is
that your overall average?
My overall average. Though let me say, it's with the current way it's about regurgitation. I wouldn't put too much value to that.
Now, when you you say school has prepared you for the National Regurgitation Institute, meaning they teach facts, you've retained those facts, and you can spit them out as needs be.
Yeah.
But that hasn't taught you to be, a critical thinker?
I think it has, but there's always room for it. And I'm not here to say that our education system's awful. Our teachers, everything that we do is fantastic. There's just room to make it better and to make it more useful. And it's I parallel this situation. I think we're all, in essence, undercover toddlers. And the reason I say that is because, a toddler is sitting there and you try to force feed it, right? It doesn't like it. But if you leave the cookie or whatever it is on the other side of the room and you teach it how to walk, then it'll perhaps try it. And that's what technology really brings to the classroom. It gives us the outlook and that element of curiosity to want to learn. And it's less about forcing it and more so about sparking curiosity.
Garash, I can't wait until you are the Minister of Education. You are going to
Thank you so much.
You are going to shake things up. How about a hand for this guy? Thank you very much for joining us. Let's go back over here. I want some feedback from all of you on what you just heard. Camille, what do you think?
I think he's made some excellent points. I think he's highlighted some of the issues that we have within our school system. And he's a great example. He's getting 95. Why do we need to change then? We look at our PISA scores, we're doing fine internationally. Why do we need to change? And I think as Dr. Fullen has said earlier as well, is that we can't stand still. But we have a lot of pressure from students, from parents, that no, we're very comfortable with our current system. We'd like it to stay that way because our child knows how to be successful in that traditional system. That doesn't mean that your child will be successful in 2030, but right now, I'm okay with it. And I think that's a big challenge. That's a big challenge that we have with our teacher candidates. You touched on this a little bit earlier. Are our new teachers, our digital natives, and I purposely use our air quotes, digital natives more tech savvy and better prepared to use technology in the classroom? No, they are not. They are more than happy to replicate the current system, to regurgitate what we currently have, because that's how they became successful. They will fall back to how they were successful. And that's a real challenge when we do have an impetus to feel that, no, we need to change our educational system. We need to support these 21st century competencies. Then as a school system and as a society, then we'll see that real change.
Ron, how typical is what you just heard?
Oh, it's very typical. Again, our research indicated this doing school, and we were interviewing the students who are doing well, exactly as what we just heard. And I find that disconcerting, and highly disconcerting, because now we're doing school. So they figured out the routine, and then we all of a sudden establish this type of value to it to say, oh my God, how learned can they be? Whereas in effect, and when Dr. Fullen was talking about an 82% graduation rate, I shudder. That's almost 1 out of every 5 students is not graduating.
Yeah, it's up from 69% a decade ago.
Doesn't matter. Still not. It's not very comforting for someone who fails and who's dropped out of the system. And there are more of these people, because when we see now in our research that the interest and motivation levels in our research, the latest findings was 32%. Of interest and motivation. So these are the children that we're supposed to feel are supposed to move forward, and yet we're demotivating them, as we do this. And we've got to change. We can't start to believe that all of a sudden it's the past that's going to give us the answers to the future.
Kathy, this is clearly a bright student who feels he's not getting bang for his buck.
Well, I just wanted to add on to this idea. I think that we have to really understand what technology is doing to support the learning. There's a really interesting study of Washington State. 40,000 online learners they looked at the data from those 40,000 online learners.
This is, school age or adults or what?
These are college students.
College students, okay.
And the study was done by Columbia College Research Center.
Okay.
And what they found out was that students who are good learners or who are already having success were having great success with these online courses. And the students who were struggling were actually doing worse than they were doing before. So we have to be very careful about answering with technology just sort of in a blanket way, because in that example, you can see that the gap is actually getting wider through an online forum.
Do you fear, Michael Fullen, that the introduction of radical technology into the classroom, in collaboration with pedagogy, as we've learned today, can in fact have a perverse effect, maybe create a wider education gap between the haves and have-nots?
It could, and the way I think about it is the upsides far outweigh the downsides. So I won't say there are no downsides, because there are. But we have to be conscious about what we're doing and why we're doing that and how to engage people. And I was thinking when Garash was talking that somebody has taught him how to be a critical thinker.
Clearly.
Parents, perhaps.
Well, was it his family? Was it his teacher? Who do we think it was?
We won't get too personal. I don't know. But I actually don't think that there are any big barriers to changing the experience of students and teachers. There aren't any. Some places there are. The tests in some places are very restrictive. Ours aren't. So that it's mainly a matter of know-how and of doing it and of learning from each other, making it more widespread. There's nothing preventing us from doing that.
Well, okay, I got a bit of a list here. Let me share this list. Here are some of the roadblocks that teachers who were... A guy named Wojtek Schembert is producing this Learning 2030 series, and he's constantly in touch with teachers, and this is what they have told him are the roadblocks to improvements. Access to the latest technology, don't have it. Access to PD training, don't have it. Student attention spans, don't have it. Funding, learning about new technologies while meeting increasing demands from the ministry. Paperwork, I hear that all the time myself. Lack of forward-looking curriculum. Unions. Technology decisions made centrally. Lack of technical service staff. And fear, which you talked about, Michael Fullen, in your speech earlier today. That seems like a pretty daunting list, Camille. Would you agree?
It is a very daunting list.
How do you want to overcome all those things?
All of them?
In the next 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yes. Again, I don't want to... There's so much reliance on technology, and so people talk about, we don't have the technology in our classroom, we don't have the financing to support this technology. The PD is a key issue. Yeah. It is very difficult, and I think some of the surveys that we've looked at, that teachers want to learn more about how to integrate technology, they want to support 21st century learning, but they don't have the opportunity for that professional development. It is incredible.
Hang on, teachers have professional development days, parents would say, way too much already.
Okay, and those days have reduced in the number of recent contracts.
Sure, that's true too.
And it's still incredibly expensive to take a teacher out of the classroom, to send them off to learn how to use these technologies to support creativity, collaboration, all of these things, and then come back. 1 day is not enough. In learning any new skill, any new competency, 1 day is not enough. It's finding time. And as Ron was saying, our schedules as teachers are so compact now. There's so much that needs to be done. When do I have a time to really develop my craft? How do I integrate technology to support that? And have time to engage in professional reflection, to learn from others, and then come back and implement that in my classroom.
How do we deal with that, Michael Fullen? Parents don't want teachers to have any more professional development days, while at the same time they want teachers to be on the cutting edge of everything in education. What do we do?
It's the problem is in the word professional development. One of our colleagues wrote an intriguing article that was titled "Professional Development: A Great Way to Avoid Change." And he was saying people are going to workshops, but not much is happening in between workshops. So you will not get depth knowledge by going to a workshop. You will not get it. You will get it day after day if you're working with a leader in the school who are learning from each other. They're implying, we call it learning is the work. So we need to replace PD with PL, professional learning, and it's got to be seen as part of the job, not something you do once a month. And I'm not saying the once a month might not be valuable as input, but it's not the answer. The answer is what you learn every day and what you learn together, because it has to be shared for it to be powerful.
Ron, talk to us about parents. What role do they have in all of this?
Well, you know, again, I think they play an invaluable role. There's no doubt about it. They can be truly supportive, but I think in the context of where they can be most supportive is in valuing that relationship between their child and the teacher and placing value within that relationship at all times. Not allowing for a moment of, you know, to say, oh, you know, that teacher, forget it, he's useless or whatever. Not allowing for these type of things, because this damages the inherent learning that can happen. So the parents, that is from our point of view, really the most crucial role. And when we talk about the change and everything, what we need to do as well for parents, and I will admit this, having been a director of education in Quebec for a number of years, we do a really poor job of communicating to parents. We use jingoism, all sorts of language that even ourselves, sometimes myself, I would read something and say, what in the world does this mean? You know, like this, and then we send it out to the parents and hoping that they will do this. And just one clear example I can tell you, 21st century skills. Say this to parents and many of them go, what are you talking about? And these are the type of things that we need to improve as well as an education system, is our communication to the parents so that they can understand, because they will be supportive. I don't know one parent who would feel, no, I don't want my education system to improve. There's not one parent who's going to articulate that, but they need to understand where we're going, why we're doing it, and then place the trust in the people who can do that.
Well, but Kathy, one of the challenges is parents want a much better education system. They don't want their taxes to go up to hire the more teachers that might require. They don't want to give teachers more days off for PL, as I've now learned, professional learning. What do we do?
I have one small subversive suggestion, and that is the work that I do as a researcher with teachers. So I'm going out and trying to find funding so that I can release teachers to work in a sustained way together to collaborate and learn how to use the technology. So that's one example, but I think we need to be really creative about how we try and access funds and how we work together to make sense of the technologies and maximize their use.
Okay. I want to go south of the border for a second and play a clip from a documentary about, speaking of subversive ideas, about a school where they put the kids in charge.
Yeah.
Sort of. But this is, I'm discovering, not a completely crazy idea. Let's roll tape and then we'll come back and chat. Roll tape, please.
It's crazy that in a system that is meant to teach and help the youth, there's no voice from the youth at all.
If students designed their own schools, what would school look like?
Crime and punishment is first and foremost a test.
Probably something like this. No quizzes, no grades, not even classes.
I think Dostoevsky actually might disagree with me on that.
And most of the time, no teachers or any adults in the classroom.
So it's a completely alternative academic program here at Monument. We have 9 kids in it, and we look at the 4 main bodies of learning, English, math, social sciences, and natural sciences.
I think the most valuable thing with these sorts of problems
This is a school within a public high school designed by the students themselves. The program, known as the Independent Project, runs for 1 semester and is divided into 3 parts. All follow the same basic rule: design your own learning.
I can hear parents shaking their heads already. However, we do want to talk about this, and let's talk about it with Heidi Seewack, who is an award-winning middle school teacher from Hamilton, Ontario, the center of the universe, as we all know. You discovered this documentary on Twitter, I gather?
Yes.
And when you watched it, what did you think?
I thought it was incredibly exciting and something that needs to happen in our schools.
How come?
I have been doing a transition in my own teaching career for the past 3 years, and I have loosened the reins more and more. And the level of engagement of students and the level of learning and critical thinking just continues to arise and rise up when you engage students in that way and allow them the freedom to learn what it is that they want to learn.
Give us an example of how you might have done things in the past, but now that you are loosening up, it's changed and things are better. Like what?
Like what? So for example, in grade 7, we study the War of 1812. And in the past, I would have been up in front of the classroom teaching all those facts that you didn't like to learn, right? And having my kids regurgitate those for the test. I don't do that anymore. I give them parameters. I create a boundary, so there's still structure there. But because we have access to technology and we have access to such a wide world of learning, I use the technology for the students to access that, construct their own knowledge, and we debate and we discuss what it is that they're discovering.
And these are grade 6s and 7s?
Grade 7 students for that particular class.
Grade 7 for the War of 1812
yes.
project.
And they're left with much stronger content knowledge in the end, even though I'm not teaching the facts to them, because they're discovering it and thinking about it on their own. They actually have a better understanding of what happened in the War of 1812, the issues around it, and then we actually went on into Napoleon because they were curious about his role in the War of 1812, than they would ever have had in any way that I've taught in the past.
And the retention of this information is better?
Yes.
How do you know?
Because they can talk about it. And they'll talk about it, and it'll come up in class again. They'll think back to it, and they'll say, well, remember in that situation. So and they describe that themselves. The students will say that themselves. When they study for a test, they lose the knowledge right away. But because we approach learning in a different way, it stays with them.
You didn't pick up on this idea from a PD or PL day, right? This was you in your own spare time?
Yes. But
Okay.
I had a strong support of people in the global community who are trying to make this transformation in education to draw upon.
Okay, what does that mean?
What does that mean? So 3 years ago, when I was still a traditional teacher, and I thought that technology was teaching my kids how to use word processing, and that was basically it, I recognized from my own children and what my students were showing interest in that I needed to make a change. So I attempted to introduce blogging in the classroom. And it flopped incredibly. And it flopped because I didn't understand blogging as a genre. And it was that light bulb moment for me that unless I begin to learn these new tools of communication and what they are as genres and what they mean, I'm not going to be able to understand or use them effectively in my classroom. So then I just set out learning all of these new tools. I discovered Twitter, and I discovered that I could access any information through this global community to improve my skills as a teacher.
How many hours of your so-called free time did you spend doing all this?
Oh my goodness. My first year, when I really discovered this, I would say 20 to 30 hours a week above my regular teaching.
A week?
A week.
So you're in the classroom, you're at school presumably from 8:30 till?
Day ends at 3, so maybe 4.
Till 4, and another 20 hours a week on top of that.
20 to 30 hours
20
a week
to 30.
on top of that, yeah.
You still married?
I am. He's here.
He is, okay. I was going to say, that's...
But I have to say,
that's a
I
load.
immersed myself totally in it, and it did take my time away from many other things in order for me to make this transformation, but it was so worth it.
What percentage of teachers out there, in your experience, are like you?
I would say all teachers are committed and dedicated to improving their practice. And there is a continuous conversation going on between teachers about how to improve and a sharing of ideas.
Heidi, they're not all like that. Come on.
Well,
they're not all like that.
Well, in the school in which I teach, I would say yes. I'm a very supportive community of teachers and in a good school. I don't think everybody necessarily has the time that I had to make that transformation. I couldn't have done that when my kids were small. I couldn't have done that if I had an aging parent to care for. It was an opportune time for me.
Okay. What's the major roadblock to prevent more of this from happening?
I think in some cases, teachers are waiting for permission.
From?
From, exactly. From who? And they don't realize that they can begin to make these changes because, in fact, that's what's expected, that we are expected to make these changes. I think in terms of the technology piece, all of the issues around bandwidth, upkeep, technicians in our school, that ongoing piece needs more financing, more funding. And then a lot of teachers need the training. How do you, not just to learn the tool, but how do I use this constructively for learning?
Great. Heidi, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
This sounds very neat. Thank you for sharing
It's
it with
fun.
us. Okay, good. I'm going to grab this hand mic here from Tina. Thank you very much. We're going to go in the audience. And I'm hoping, having had your appetite whetted by Michael Fullan's speech on big ideas earlier and by the discussion we have here today, that there will be some questions from the crowd. Who's going to be brave and throw a hand up in the air and get this started on live television as we speak? Thank you, right here. Let's go up here and talk to Giancarlo. Come stai?
Tutto bene, tutto bene.
Okay. What do you want to tell us about your experience with all of this, first of all?
So I came from teaching actually at the university level first, and then at the high school level in a one-to-one environment. That led me to actually be an education consultant for a technology company, Smart Technologies. So now I work with the school boards in Ontario, helping them implement the technology. And it's interesting, you know, when we hear everybody talking about technology and, you know, what's going to happen in 2030, and there's a lot of teachers that are still behind. And there's a director I was talking with, you know, who called it out and said, hey guys, you know, there's some of you that are blogging and tweeting and doing, you know, innovative practices and transforming your practices, but don't forget there's this whole slew of others that are waiting for who, like you mentioned, right, to pull them along. But I think the key is we have to remember that it's possible for all teachers to access and to integrate technology effectively. We have to start on that premise, just like a teacher walks into the classroom and believes.
That's not true. It's not true. Not everybody can do this.
You have to believe that it's possible. Because if you start saying that it's not possible, then you start putting up barriers. Like Michael was saying, you know, the key to change is actually removing those barriers, removing those fears. So if you start with the positive, saying everybody can do it, and then ask, well, what can we do to enable that to happen? So whether you're a faculty of education saying, okay, I'm at the faculty, what can we do, Kathy, to connect the community to the faculty or to put up, you know, guidelines? Or, you know, if I'm at the school board level, instead of doing PD, what can I do to enable communities and, you know, to dialogue and to discuss? So I think believing that it's possible and then asking what we can do, no matter what we're rolling, to enable that to happen is, I think, what will happen. Because the technology is coming in. It's coming in...
Whether we like it or not.
Whether we like it or not, and it's coming in quicker than we can support it.
Let me get Michael Fullan to react to that. What percentage of the teachers in the school system in Ontario today are capable of their own initiative doing the kinds of things that Heidi and Giancarlo are talking about?
I think capable and also being motivated to do it is... it's a minority percentage. I don't know, let's say 15% could have that initiative. This is why we think it has to be enabled. It's got to be led. It's got to be freed up barriers. So we've seen it spread rapidly when the system is making it spread.
Okay, Zoe.
Hi.
Hi. Where do you teach?
I teach at Dalewood School, the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, and I teach in a self-contained, gifted special ed classroom.
That's right near Mac, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Dalewood? Yeah, I know it. Okay. All of what you're hearing today, how much of all of this is possible going forward?
In the context that I'm teaching in, a lot of the students that I'm working with have not been successful in the regular classroom or the regular curriculum. And yet when I watch these kids, even in the non-instructional time, the recess, times that they're given to work collaboratively, they're self-organizing into teams. They're creating, co-authoring their own books. They're getting themselves published. They're working on servers that they've created in gaming atmospheres. All of the competencies that we're talking about with 21st century learning, they're doing quite successfully already without some of the structures that we're trying to put in place. And so there's a bit of a dichotomy that I'm battling there with the criteria and the goal setting for those kids when I'm watching them do what we want them to do already. And these are kids who have not been successful. So those are my questions there.
Michael Fullan's got this expression that teachers don't have to be the sage on the stage anymore as much as they did in the past. Do you agree with that?
I do, absolutely. I think that we need to be coaching and supporting our kids. We need to be, the feedback has to be there for those kids to grow. I've asked, my students saw that video that we watched a moment ago, and some of them, it scared them. It scared them with the thought of having the responsibility put on them because they don't know what they don't know, and they need guidance and support. My biggest fear, though, is that, that we're okay as a system that teachers are going into the field without some of the competencies that these kids have. And I know that Dr. Rutherford, Camille brought that up a while ago, and that in the past, we as educators we're the experts at math, at literacy, at reading, at writing, and yet we should also be the experts at digital media. We should be the experts at social media, at these kinds of mediums that our kids are going to do in 2030. So.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Zoe. Say hi to the hammer for me. Colin, stand up. Join me here if you would. All of what you're hearing today, what do you think?
It's
You're a teacher too. Where do you teach?
I am a teacher. I'm a teacher, and I'm currently a consultant, science and technology consultant with Kawartha Pine Ridge here in Peterborough.
Okay.
Yeah. It's positive. I agree with Zoe, and I agree with what a lot of other people said about teachers wanting to make change. I work with a lot of teachers, and they want to know how to use new technology. They want to know how to incorporate things like inquiry-based learning and project-based learning and get hands-on with kids in ways that maybe they haven't been able to before, but it's overwhelming.
Do you personally feel overwhelmed by all of this?
Sometimes. I don't mind change. I'm someone who, I've been involved in technology my whole career. I quite like it. And when you're working with a teacher and it's not just about technology, it's about making a change in education. Because I think from what, we're listening to Dr. Fullen, with the 6 C's, those aren't new. People have been collaborating since we learned how to speak. It's before that, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't have learned how to speak. So there's nothing new about those big questions. It's how do we now do it in a society that's moving so fast, change is so rapid, there's so many things coming that we have no idea what's coming. How do we then prepare kids for that?
Do you think teachers are temperamentally conservative?
Small c?
Small c, of course.
You know what? Absolutely.
I thought that went without saying, but okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I've said it before. We don't tend to vote that way, but we very much are. And it's not that we don't like change. It's that we get... when you get comfortable in a way of doing something that works for you, you don't change. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And so very often we see it as being good enough, as Dr. Fullen was saying earlier today. And so to then come around and say, well, the system's broken, and that's hard for us to process. And I just watched a video this week by Sugata Mitra, a TED Talk, where he says, we don't talk about the system being broken. The system is doing exactly what the system is designed to do. It's just irrelevant now. We don't need it to do that anymore.
I want to pick up on that notion of the system. Colin, thank you for joining us. And Michael Fullen, you talked earlier, again, in your Big Ideas lecture, about how technology, thanks, Tina, how technology dramatically affects virtually every sector in the world except the education sector. How can that be?
There is a self-sealing effect of the educational system. People are, first of all, it's huge and it's public, and it's very hard to break into that system, and the policies and the tests keep it the way it is. So I said disruptive innovations as well, which means there needs to be a force to break through that kind of inertia that the existing system is. So it is huge inertia, but there's lots of pockets inside it now that are bursting to get out. And that's the part we have to enable it to do that.
Rob, we got about a minute and a half to go here. We have a new education minister in Ontario now. Her name is Liz Sandals from Guelph. She taught computer science at the University of Guelph once upon a time. She used to be the president of the Ontario School Boards Association. Does that suggest to you that a lot of the reforms we've been talking about today have a better chance at happening since she's been there? She may get this.
No, not necessarily. To be very candid with you, because of the pressures that are going to be placed on her in terms of, as Dr. Fullen was saying, the inertia context within education is profound. Before, when the gentleman was talking about our teachers, small c conservatives, I would have to say the system is a big C conservative, and people working within it are trying their best to be creative, are trying to be the risk takers. Something that we discovered in our laptop deployment since 2003 is that teachers do move around and do gravitate towards this, because there's not one teacher who wants to do a lousy job out there. There may be some, as usual, yes. But what was interesting before as well, in the listing of the impediments, the obstacles to really seeing this happen, and I heard the word union being mentioned. Well, I'm going to say this now, and I may really upset some people, but I think there are some district leaders and ministry folks that have really got to change their paradigms. And they've got to show a lot more courage to bringing this forth, because without the courage, we're not going to see the change.
That prescription will be the last word today. I want to thank, first of all of our guests for showing up today, in particular Michael Fullen, whose lecture is available on our Big Ideas website. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming to Peterborough today and helping us with this. I want to thank the audience behind us who came out this afternoon and partook, I should say, in our discussion. And of course, I very much want to thank the folks here at Trent University in Peterborough who've done such a great job accommodating us, making us feel so welcome. We have really loved our time here this weekend on the shores of the Otonabee River. So thank you all so much.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.